Look, it's not easy always being so good and righteous. Superheroes have a tough job to do, and constantly fighting the good fight can be exhausting. It's almost like the villains get to have all the fun, while the heroes are the ones stuck policing everything and being the responsible ones. Sometimes superheroes just want to be bad, you know? Nobody is perfect, so why would we expect our favorite heroes to always be noble, upright citizens? Welcome back to The Binger. In this video, we'll be looking at some well-known Marvel heroes who slipped up and found themselves on the wrong side of the fence, so to speak. These are 10 Marvel superheroes that became supervillains. Like my dad always told me, if you're gonna do something, do it well. If there's one thing I can credit these entries for, it's that they are equally as bad as they are at being good. So strap in and get ready for your role models to let you down. Spider-Man. Everyone loves their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I mean, the word friendly is in his freaking moniker. Whether it's the comic book version or the on-screen version, Spider-Man has always been one of the most likable characters in the Marvel Universe. He's silly, he's witty, he's funny, and he's an excellent crime fighter. While the endearing web slinger has been beloved by fans for generations, he isn't without his moments of weakness. Most notably, the storyline of Spider-Man 3, starring Tobey Maguire, shows Spidey going down a dark path. It all starts when a meteorite lands in Central Park and an extraterrestrial symbiote emerges. The pesky little glob follows Peter Parker home to his apartment. While Peter is sleeping in his Spider-Man suit, the symbiote merges with his suit. Then Peter wakes up on top of a building, discovering that his suit is different, now much darker, and his powers are now enhanced. Plus, he's also got a new attitude to match. This leads to one of the worst scenes in movie history, where Peter Parker strolls around town with his fancy new personality. Throughout the rest of the film, Peter struggles internally with the newfound evil inside him as it slowly takes over the friendly hero. Ultimately, Spider-Man is able to disconnect from his no-good parasite and goes back to his lovable old ways. It was a close call, but all's well that ends well, right? Peter goes back to normal and the symbiote ends up merging with Brock, who transforms into Venom. Okay, maybe not all things ended well. Jean Grey. Originally one of the least impressive members of the X-Men, Jean Grey really only reaches her potential when she becomes the Phoenix, one of the most powerful mutants in history. However, during Chris Claremont and John Byrne's acclaimed story arc, The Dark Phoenix Saga, Jean becomes consumed by the primordial Phoenix Force. It's an entity described as a child of the universe and a hub for all psionic energy in the multiverse, and assumes the identity of the Dark Phoenix. In going through this transformation, she completely loses herself in all sense of reality. As the Dark Phoenix, she needs to harvest energy from stars across the galaxy, which causes unfathomable destruction. She goes as far as destroying an entire solar system along with 5 billion lives. And that isn't even the only time Jean Grey went bad. In another event, Jean Grey ends up losing control of her powers yet again. This time, in an effort to protect others, she opts to take her own life. Moviegoers will soon be familiar with the character, as the movie Dark Phoenix is set to hit movie theaters this summer. Scarlet Witch. Much like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Wanda Maximoff, also known as Scarlet Witch, was introduced as a villain before joining the Avengers. In the comics, Scarlet Witch and her twin brother Quicksilver are the offspring of Magneto. They join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and do battle against the X-Men. It's later revealed that the super duo was simply paying back a debt and are not inherently evil, despite their dastardly dad. However, there was one time in the comics when Scarlet Witch became a real serious problem. During the massive crossover event Avengers Disassembled, Wanda loses all concept of reality and starts attacking the Avengers. She blames the team, and most notably Tony Stark, for the demise of her children. Her attacks result in the elimination of 3 major heroes: Hawkeye, Vision, and Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Wolverine. Wolverine is one of the most popular and recognizable Marvel heroes of all time, but he's also one that has gone off the heroic path on more than a few occasions. In one instance, during the acclaimed Old Man Logan story arc, Wolverine destroys a whole group of supervillains who attack the X-Mansion. However, it turns out that he was tricked by Mysterio and actually eliminated several of his fellow X-Men. In another event, Logan is defeated by a trio of enemies: Hydra, the Hand, and Gorgon. However, rather than leave him to perish, the Hand resurrect Logan as a weapon and use him to slaughter the X-Men. Finally, during the X-Men Forever storyline, Wolverine is defeated by fellow X-Men Storm, who suspected Wolverine of turning evil. All that to say, despite Wolverine's immense power and heroic tendencies, he isn't above corruption. Reed Richards. You may know Reed Richards as Mr. Fantastic, the leader of the Fantastic Four. However, a particularly rough day once caused him to completely lose his mind. Following the disbanding of the group, the stress of combating Magneto, and Sue turning down his marriage proposal, Reed decides to fake his own death and hire aliens to blow up his family's home. He also destroys Peter Parker's home. While others deal with rejection and stress in other ways, maybe with a pint of ice cream or hitting a punching bag, Reed Richards went for complete and utter destruction. He's also one of the only heroes on this list who turned into a villain and actually remained one. Also, slightly off topic, but he was kind of cheap about his name, don't you think? With other Fantastic Four members like The Thing, Human Torch, and Invisible Woman, it seems a little self-centered and egotistical to grab the moniker Mr. Fantastic, doesn't it? Iron Man. This is a tricky one because Iron Man is only a villain if you take Captain America's side. Civil War was a massive storyline in both the comics and in the movies, pitting Tony Stark against Steve Rogers. While neither character was particularly evil, nor were either of them full-fledged villains, it was still an epic battle between two of the biggest names in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A movie can't have two protagonists though. One of the guys has to be classified as the antagonist, and considering that the movie was technically a Captain America movie, Iron Man is reluctantly relegated to the villain role. Let's face it, Tony Stark definitely has some villainous tendencies, especially when compared to the squeaky clean Steve Rogers. Cyclops. Cyclops is an X-Men staple, but he isn't without his slip-ups or flaws. Following the death of his lover Jean Grey, he goes and gets married to someone else and has a son, who grows up to be Cable. Then, once he finds out that Jean Grey is back from the afterlife, he leaves his family. He also cheats on Jean. All in all, Cyclops displays some pretty problematic behavior. While that doesn't necessarily make him a villain, it definitely makes him a crappy person. The fact that he kills Professor X and starts his own school for evil mutants, that makes him a villain. Bucky Barnes. In 2005, comic book fans were shocked to learn that the villainous Winter Soldier was actually Captain America's World War II sidekick, Bucky Barnes. Not only was it surprising to see this good guy turn bad, but readers thought he had perished in the war. After years of supposed death, writer Ed Brubaker decided to bring Bucky back as a brainwashed spy. The character goes from a heroic soldier to cold and calculated assassin without batting an eyelid. Things remain relatively similar in the on-screen adaptation of the storyline in Captain America Winter Soldier, with Bucky rejoining the good side at its conclusion. The Hulk. The Hulk was always kind of labeled a monster, not necessarily a hero or a villain. He kind of just acts out of blind rage. Although deep down he still has the warm and caring heart of Bruce Banner. Despite an ever-present trail of destruction that follows Hulk wherever he goes, his motives are usually good. In one comic book storyline, Tony Stark, Reed Richards, and several other Marvel heroes decide that it's in everyone's best interest to ship off the Hulk to a faraway planet where he can't cause any costly destruction. Things don't go exactly as planned and result in the awesome Planet Hulk storyline. Hulk ends up taking over the planet and its entire army. He returns to Earth to exact his revenge on those who banished him, this time with a team of his own. In the 90s, writer Peter David and artist George Perez created the character Maestro, a future spin-off of the Hulk. As a result of nuclear war 100 years in the future, the character absorbed too much radiation, which not only increases his strength and intelligence, but also drives him mad. With his newfound attributes, Maestro gained control of the future and rules as a dictator over all those who survived the war. While it's not technically the Hulk who is such an evil villain, it was certainly Hulk adjacent enough to be included. Captain America. Hearing Cap utter the words, "Hail Hydra," just makes an audience's skin crawl. It's not supposed to happen. It's like Larry Bird playing for the Lakers or Taylor Swift saying something nice about one of her exes. It just doesn't happen. In the comics, writer Nick Spencer managed to weave a convoluted tale about Steve Rogers actually being a secret Hydra agent all along. It's later revealed that Steve had his memories of Hydra implanted by Kobe, explaining his sudden allegiance shift. This was undoubtedly one of the toughest turns to swallow for audiences. After all, Captain America is supposed to be the pillar of justice. He's supposed to be the most noble and dependable hero of the bunch. So to see him go bad was a complete and utter shock. While Cap is back to his old heroic and patriotic ways in the comics, his run as a villain won't soon be forgotten by fans. There's even a subtle reference to this story during Avengers Endgame, but I won't go into many spoilers. And there's our list of top heroes who turned villains. Did we miss any big ones? Let us know in the comments section down below. Also, be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our latest video releases. Until next time, you've been watching The Binger.